Hey there, isolation booths can be an effective way to block outside sound and reduce echo when you're doing voiceovers, but if you know what to do with your room, they're not always necessary. I'm going to show you what one of my coaching students did with his space in an interview coming up.
3, 2, 1.
Studio Takes. Real help for the aspiring voiceover artist.
And I'm Dane Scott from thegigdoctor.com, top-rated Fiverr seller. We're going boothless today. One of the issues I cover in my book, Voiceover Mythbusters, is the whole question of whether people need to build themselves or buy themselves an isolation booth in order to do credible voiceovers. The answer in a lot of cases is no. And this time I'm going to show you not one, but two examples of situations where someone has used a regular room and they still have great sounding recordings. And at the end of today, I'm going to tell you how you can get Voiceover Mythbusters, the book, as a bonus gift. So hang around for that. A lot of times when I'm contacted by people who are just getting started in voiceovers, I ask them how things are going, and they'll answer, great, I have my mic, and I just ordered my booth. And I kind of go, oh, because just hearing that much, I already know that they've been chowing down on the online courses that all offer the same advice, which was probably learned from other teachers who had other courses and so on. It's third, fourth, fifth generation information in a lot of cases, but they trust it to be gospel, and then they follow through and they do the same things. And then maybe someday, after they've done voiceovers for a while, they create their own course, and then they suggest the same things as well. Well, that makes me feel a little like a kind of a lone voice crying in the wilderness here when I proclaim that, hey, you don't necessarily need to introduce an oversized phone booth into your home. There is another way. The fact is that a typical back bedroom can be touched up and turned into a very good space for recording yourself, if you keep certain things in mind. I talked about that in the video, If I Was Starting Voiceovers Today with No Budget, which I will link to at the end of this message in the kind of the closing trailer. And I'll provide a link to also in the show notes for you. It gets into more specifics on room acoustics. Today I want to show you results. I am doing coaching with this really cool guy, Eddie Shea, who has a wonderful, interesting voice. You're going to hear it here coming up. He had just 4 painted walls, and the room rang like a bell when we did our first session together. And so I made some suggestions near the end of our coaching session, which he took me up on. And so the next time we got together, which, by the way, was today, the day I'm recording this, and he had made enormous progress. And I'm going to have him take you on a little whirlwind tour of his room, and then I'll do the same with my own to give you some ideas. And hang with me because at the end, I am going to show you how you can get my book, Voiceover Mythbusters, as a free bonus gift when you get my almost free course of the same name. Let's roll tape on the interview. Eddie Shea, where are you located?
I'm in Sacramento, California. All
right. We had our first session not that long ago, and since then, you have done some amazing things with your room there. Originally, when we spoke, I was saying, you know, it's not inconceivable that you might be able to just take the room that you have, despite the fact that you're starting out with just plaster walls with paint, and do some things to it that will improve the acoustics enough that it actually could be used for recording. I think you've more than succeeded at that with the things you've done, and I wanted to have you just share this with the people that are watching this, give them an idea of what you accomplished with just some simple changes to your room.
Yeah. So the most significant piece of work that I did was I built 10 of these sound panels, 17 by 48 sound panels that contain mineral wool inside. And I also purchased some heavy curtains that I put over every door and window. So just to kind of show your audience here, that used to be a window, it's now covered. On this side is a door, which is now covered. This bookshelf was here already, so I didn't do much with that. There was also a closet here, which I covered as well, and then a window. And there's actually already a sheer curtain there, but I can pull the heavy curtain over that if I need to. And then in addition to the 4 panels behind me, I also have 4 panels over here, as well as behind my monitor. And I also moved in, I used to just have a love seat, this love seat back here, but I actually moved in the couch version of it as well, so that I had just some extra soft furniture in here to help dampen the sound as well.
So you are all in on the acoustic panels. How deep are those?
They are 4 inches deep.
4 inch. Okay, yeah. So they're like the ones I have here then. And I got to tell you, and the other thing then that you did was at my recommendation, you got the wonderful cheap little 5-fine microphone.
Yes.
And as I listen to you now, I just think, wow, what a difference. We started our session today, and I said, man, this is just night and day different. So suddenly, with the addition of these panels, which were just homebrew, and just the use of a very simple, inexpensive condenser USB type microphone, he is geared up to the point where he can actually start doing voiceovers. The first step for him will be actually working on getting the demo put together, and then after that, to start marketing himself for voiceovers without having to do anything in the way of like creating an acoustic booth or some kind of an isolation chamber or basically a vertical casket that you're going to have to stand inside or sit inside when you do your voiceovers. You've got all the elbow room of an entire room now where you can do your work. So I'm sure that feels pretty good.
It does. Yeah, it's great.
While we're at it, let's also visit my room here, which takes a similar approach while taking advantage of some features that this room already had or has. If you've already seen a studio tour of my room here, you can skip to the end and get the message at the end. All right, cue the cheesy music and let's go into the studio here. Here is the hallway leading in, and while the doors look the same all the way along the hallway, the one on the end is actually different. And I'll show you that in just a second here. As we open the door up, number one, you can see that this is a bedroom, and it's just converted for the purposes that it's being used for here. But if we look at that door, you can see already that the thickness of the door looks different than the typical door. There's another view of it, and it is very thick. Look at the latch area there, and you can see how much broader it is than a typical door. So what we did was we actually had a door built to match the other doors in the hallway in terms of the appearance, but which has a solid core backing on it that's very, very deep, and it gives us kind of a bank vault effect, which really helps to block infiltrating sound from the outside. Something you cannot see very well, though. If we back up one slide here, we can kind of see it. You can see that on the carpeting there's a drag mark. That's from a sweep that's on the floor there. That sweep helps to block sound, and we can't see it too well, but well, maybe here we can. Nope. We look here again, you can kind of see the weatherproofing. There's a strip of weatherproofing also around the door where it closes against. There again is the thick door, and then as we move into the room, just on the other side of that door, there are 3 acoustic panels. Now these panels are just homemade. They look thin, but they're actually 4 inches deep. And they're 3 by 4 feet in size, each of them. So they fill pretty much a whole wall. All they are is 1 by 4 pine. And so just a frame knocked together. And then we had some custom fabric printed. This is acoustic fabric. And I took a picture of the river where we live here. And we just had that printed across 3 pieces of fabric and stretched that across the panels. So it ends up being kind of like a triptych or a 3-piece mural taken from our own environment here in Northeast Wisconsin, which gives it kind of a homey feel. But that stuff really helps to absorb the sound because of what's inside. The fabric allows any sound to pass into it, and inside it gets trapped in mineral wool insulation, which you can get at a local hardware store or more likely at a lumber store, a place that like a Home Depot or somewhere like that where they have lumber and home construction supplies. So built up from that, we end up with 3 attractive panels on the back wall. And then if we just turn our heads a little bit farther over here, we can see that the far wall there is books from floor to ceiling and from wall to wall. And we didn't do this with the intention of creating an acoustic effect. We just had a lot of books and we put them up on shelves. But when I moved into the room, I noticed that it had wonderful acoustic properties, and part of the reason was because of this wall. There are actually studios in places like LA where they do bookshelves. And in this case, we've got not only the bookshelves, but also you can see on the second from the top shelf there's quite a few albums. And albums are good at blocking sound too. And then in addition to that, then there are a few album covers up there just for decoration. There's also the beginning of a collection of 50s sci-fi memorabilia. I'm going to have some wind-up robots there and things, and old science fiction magazines. So just make the room your own. Clutter it up. Clutter is great for blocking acoustic echo. And so the more you do to kind of clutter up your room in ways that make it feel homey and fun to you, the better off you are. As we look over here, we're starting to see the beginning of the studio area. And it's a wraparound horseshoe type console, which I did because I wanted it to be reminiscent of radio. So there is the console. And once again, you can see that I've done this kind of in a radio style. There is some old analog gear that is shown there as well. And let's move up. There's the cart machine. There's the turntable, and you might recognize the classic Technics turntable there. And then a very small mixer. There's one place where I compromised on the old style radio. I wouldn't necessarily have really needed to have a mixer except for the analog gear that I've incorporated into the room. Here is a view kind of close in of my work area where I do voiceovers. And I think the next one, that's a little farther back. That's actually a better view. It's a little clearer what we're looking at. And there's a pad, a felt pad, desk pad there. That is to help block acoustic echo. And because of the fact that the entire countertop is covered with a lot of objects, it really does not create much of a surface for things to bounce around on. And the microphone there, that's a U87 Neumann, so that's my kind of mic for life at this point. Over on the left there is my reel-to-reel deck, and this I've had since the 80s and just love that deck. I recently had that gone through and the heads aligned and so on, so that's in good shape to actually do some recording just for recreational purposes. I also had someone make some walnut sides for it, and we mounted some handles onto it, so that gives it a little more of a finished off look. Up on the walls there on either side of the window, which has a heavy curtain, are more acoustic panels. This one is a shot of a local park, and that one there is a shot of another local park. And then if we swing a little farther over there, there's a final panel that's just above a dresser, and that's just an art piece that I found online, and we stretched that one also over one of those acoustic panels. So the acoustic panels were all homemade, and this was the one prefab art, it's acoustic fabric, but prefab art piece that we used. And then the final look here, that is just in the corner over there. You can see that the closet has the louvered doors. That also helps to kind of break up the acoustics a little bit. I got my bass guitar down there. I can play a little bass from time to time. And that silver box that we're seeing below the panel there is actually a record cleaning machine. So we use that to wash our records and keep those in good shape. So the room performs the function of voiceover and editing well. It has nice acoustics, and it also serves as kind of my little memory place for doing radio things and for listening to music, so we can pull down the vinyl off the shelves there and listen to some records as well. And so there's my little cheap nickel tour of the Dane Scott studio. And then quickly to wrap up, I'd like to invite you to join me in my nearly free Udemy course, Voiceover Mythbusters, where I put the torch to a bunch of common misconceptions that people buy into, primarily things they have learned in what I would call YouTube University. This course is going to open your eyes to some stuff and show you ways that you can work less expensively, faster, smarter, more pleasantly, while dodging a lot of the unnecessary stuff that just gets in your way. There's a link to the course in the show notes today, and after you've taken it, if you just send me a message, a personal message, and request it, I will give you a copy of my book, Voiceover Mythbusters, where I go into even more territory and expose a few more areas where voiceover people are told that they need to jump through unnecessary hoops. In the closing trailer is a link to another video called If I Was Starting Over with No Budget, which gets into more detail on setting up a room without a booth. So check that out if you like. Be sure to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment and tell me about your situation and whether this information's been helpful to you today. I'll catch you on the flip-flop.